Thank you. 1 second. It's all these are for the room, and then that one's for Zoom. They should all pick you up as you normally.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. I apologize. We had a last minute problem with the previously scheduled grand rounds, and we ended up canceling it. But we have our superstar, Dr. Hackman, who is always on the ready, and we thank her so very much for giving us a wonderful presentation, something very important about promotion for clinicians. So I welcome Professor Ann Hackman to tell us how you get there.
And also Professor Dr. Gloria Reeves. This is not grand rounds. There are no CME credits. If you came for the CME credits, you can leave. We won't be upset. And I didn't do a disclosure slide because we don't have any disclosures except the fact that we work here. So this came about, Gloria, because Gloria and I were both going up for promotion to professor in last year's cycle. So I had many meltdowns and frequently appeared in Dr. Reeves's office saying, I can't do this. I'm not good enough to be a professor. No one will want to do this. I will make a total fool of myself. And you kept talking me off those ledges. And we both got through the process.
Yeah. And I interrupt to say that was a very two-way street, very mutual. I remember one of my meltdowns about how dare they put me through this process, and showed me a photo on her phone. And she said, I just want to show you this. It's kind of neat. One of my patients that I treated for a while in the early psychosis program, the family just texted me a picture of her on her wedding day. And I was like, oh, those are the important things in life, right? Like promotion is just sort of a nuisance, but doing this job and what we do is impactful in ways that we don't always put on our CV. And that was a real pivot for me. Like afterwards, it's really about the work we do is important for us for reasons that are not going to show up on your CV, and that's okay. Those are things that make us really satisfied and stay here and want to teach and grow and things like that. But so once you get over the mindset of it and it's just a process, it got a lot easier for me. So I'm really honored to be here with Ann and co-present.
And one of the things that we decided in going through this process was that if we got through it relatively unscathed, we were going to try to help other people try to figure out how to navigate it. So I appreciate that we have people in this room who have been relatively recently promoted. Dr. Weintraub, who's been a professor here for a long time. We also have at least twice as many people on Zoom as we have in person. So there are people here, and this will be recorded. So is being recorded so that if other people want to access it later, that's a possibility. We may have some fun people coming in. Cool. All right. So this is aimed for clinicians. Don't know how many of our psychologist colleagues we have as part of this, but I know that I've slanted this more for physicians, tried to be inclusive. And as we hit discussion stuff, if psychologists or people in other professions who are working through faculty ranks want to chime in, we would love to hear from that. And I hope that this can be as interactive as possible. I don't have a million slides. And Dr. Reeves is kind of doing, what did you tell me? You were doing the color commentary on it?
Yeah.
So
sports analogy.
Right.
Yeah.
Jump in at any point. Okay. So our objectives are to provide you with some basic information about academic rank and the promotion process. And you don't necessarily get that just by osmosis and sitting here. We talk a little bit about reasons for working towards promotion. And part of that is that many of my colleagues, when I said, you need to go for this, have said, no, I don't. I'm not doing that. That's a lot of work. It is. but let's discuss that further. Think about things for relatively new faculty. When people first land on faculty here, you should not spend your first year trying to figure out how to get promoted. You should spend your first year trying to figure out where you can get lunch and what your job responsibilities are and what is that one other stupid button in Epic. So, and then we'll talk about just reviewing the nuts and bolts of putting together a promotion packet, particularly for ranks of associate professor and professor. Anything I should add to that? No. Cool. So let's look at academic rank. Most people who come onto the faculty without having done a fellowship in something and directly from training join as clinical instructors. And that's just the way it starts. You come in as a clinical instructor. And then promotion to the rank of assistant professor typically happens after your first year. If you come in with fellowship training, you are given the rank of assistant professor when you first start. Certainly people who have worked elsewhere may come in as assistant professors. And this happens pretty automatically. Your division director gets asked to write a letter saying that you merit promotion to assistant professor, and that happens almost as a checkbox kind of thing. Associate professors need to have sustained accomplishments in teaching, contributions to knowledge, clinical activities, and/or service. And two of those need to be very strong. You should be able to fill in stuff in all four categories, but you really need two and optimally three of those to be very strong. You do want some publications here. When we talk about publications, is often when people get bent out of shape and say, no, I can't do that. Yeah, you can. And it's not as bad as you think it is. Then to be promoted to professor, in addition to everything for associate, a professor must be a highly regarded scholar in the field with a clearly established national reputation. And that's something that people can start thinking about relatively early on. Dr. Reeves put together this slide, so I will let you talk about it.
Yeah, so this shows our distribution of our faculty. So this is all faculty. So primary research, primary clinical, and educator, and those who have a foot in both worlds. And I just want to highlight a couple things. So one is it's very unusual to have a fairly even distribution of faculty at the highest ranks. To have half of our faculty at full professor to be women is very unusual nationally. And also that we have folks who are on like every step of the career trajectory journey. So if you want to talk to somebody who's at the next rung up and you don't have an idea of somebody to connect with in that, and maybe you're newer to the department, then please reach out to us and we'd be happy to connect you, because you learn the most from people who've just been through that journey that you're going to go through. So we have lots of folks available to help and support.
Cool. Thank you. So when I talk particularly with the junior faculty in my division about getting promoted, there are a lot of people who say, I don't want to do that. It's extra work. People give a variety of reasons. It's a lot of work and it does take work. But that's part of why we're doing this session, because this can get broken down into very reasonable, doable blocks. I often hear, I don't want to have to ask people for letters of recommendation. I don't want to maintain contacts and ask people from a long time ago. That's a lot of stuff to do. It's a favor. Personally, when I was being promoted to associate, there was a faculty member here who I had known from my first day of med school who declined to write me a letter of recommendation. I have never forgotten that. And I have never declined a letter of recommendation from anyone who asked me. And I think that most people who have been through this process are very, very happy to help others navigate this process. I was sort of stunned, and we'll talk more about internal, external, and outside letters, but the people were really incredibly gracious. I had someone say to me, I don't need any more accolades. Okay, I get that, but as you move up the academic ladder, you can be more helpful to other people. So I really am always still just a little bit excited about writing a promotion letter for somebody else, either in or outside of our system. And I think it looks really good on my letters of recommendation. And I'm signing Ann Hackman Professor with a little bit of a flourish at this point. Gloria, have you been excited about doing that with your letters of
Yes, absolutely.
recommendation? Okay. I think titles are sort of stupid. Other reasons we don't want to. You're in academic medicine. If you wanted to be in private practice, great. You could give yourself whatever titles you wanted. But here, I see this as part of the deal. Lots and lots of concerns, especially from more junior faculty. I'm never going to have enough publications. And at the point when I went up for associate, I think I had 13 publications, and that was way the low end. At this point, people going up for associate very commonly have single-digit publications in peer-reviewed journals. Often they have a bunch of other stuff that I'm not even totally familiar with, where they're doing podcasts or have contributed to media things that are part of, one of the professional organizations that they belong to. And all that stuff counts. You're going to need a couple things in peer-reviewed journals, but believe me, to go up for associate professor, you do not need to have 35 first author publications in the Green Journal by any stretch of the imagination. And then there's the what if I apply and I don't make it? So that does happen occasionally, and this goes through a several tiered process. First, division directors review things. You should have people from the advancement, promotion, and tenure committee review things and tell you whether or not they think you're ready. If they say you need a little bit more of this, take another year, then do that. But if our APT committee says you're not ready yet for us to send this on to the chair and the dean, then get advice. What do you need to do to get it ready and go up the next year? So if I apply and don't make it, the world will spin off its axis and life as we know it will end. That's certainly how I felt in our process of going up for professor, but really it would have been disappointing. But then I would have gone back and had other people look at it. Dr. Woodbury.
Who's in the APT committee for our department? Is it like by department or by division or?
It is by department. I will miss people, but Dr. Rees will help me. Richard Goldberg chairs the APT committee. And I don't know that everyone knows him, but he is a wonderful, kind human being who is happy to review your CV and other information and gives you advice. There's you, there's me, there's Dr. Anique Forrester,
D. Kelly, Greg Elmer, and
Is Melanie on it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, good.
yeah. I think the main thing though is that if you want to start with the process, just feel free to reach out to one of us and we will help connect folks. Usually you can get better advice if your CV is up to date. And so we're happy to help with that process to make sure it's in the correct format and to make sure it's ready for review. So that's usually a good first step. Reach out to one of us with your current draft of your CV and we can kind of take it from there.
Has there been a time when the departmental committee recommended somebody for promotion that they didn't get promoted?
Not since I have been on APT. I gather this happened at some point in the distant past. I don't know if you know further details.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it has happened. I know of one case of that, but I think that you get pretty good advice from the Department APT committee, and a lot of people currently have served on the School of Medicine APT committee, and that really helps a lot. We lean a lot on those folks to help guide.
And certainly the departmental committee doesn't want to put people forward unless it's a very solid bet. Why to work towards promotion and go for it when you're ready? You're actually already doing most of the work that you need. People are teaching, people are providing clinical services, people are connected with local and national organizations, whether that's the American Association of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry or a whole bunch of other things. People are often academically productive in a variety of ways, and sometimes you have to tease that out a little bit, but you should get credit for what you're doing. Higher academic rank can make you more useful to junior colleagues in terms of helping them move up. I think it sets a good example, and we did choose a career in academic medicine, right? We could make more money other places. Yeah.
Do they only promote like to each rank a certain number of people from the department each year? Is it like limited at all? No, just anybody.
So for folks who are online, I'm not sure if you could hear the question, but they were asking, is there a set number of promotions they do? And we've never been given a quota or anything like that at all. So that hasn't come up. And I would just add one other thing, though. I think working towards promotion sort of forces you to do a self-assessment every year. And now those painful very helpful performance evaluations that we all have to do once a year, all that information. If you keep up with your CV annually, it is so much easier, all that other stuff. So if you work on it, starting in the late winter, early spring, and just allow yourself to chip away at it, it's so much easier for all those other reasons, but it's a good self-assessment.
And we've already been doing questions and comments. If anybody online has stuff, please type it into the chat. I have that open here. Like I said, we've already been talking about questions and comments. Yes.
I know it changes dean to dean, right? Like certain requirements for promotion. In the past, there has been a requirement for the number of academic publications and within like a certain time frame. So I hear there's not a number anymore, because then there's certain like in the past 5 years, the past 10 years, like there's some time frame.
So the question is around, even if there's not a specific number of publications at this point, are we looking just at a specific time frame? So we were asked in going up for promotion to focus on the last 5 years, but certainly you're including everything in there. I personally don't have the most impressive list of publications anywhere, and there's kind of a dead zone during the first couple of years of the pandemic when we were all busy trying to, keep things together. Any other thoughts on that?
So I think we're purposely focusing more on process than giving you like very direct, clear markers. This is a very metric-oriented era. So there's more and more metrics being added each year. But with the history of time, we could give you an idea like where it falls in the range of promotion applications that have been reviewed in previous years. And also, I think there's no deadline for when you have to apply for promotion unless you're trying to stay on a tenure track. So you have an opportunity to kind of pace it if you know what the objectives are.
Is there, I've gotten this feedback a little bit too, like, is there a time you need to wait between promotions? Like you go associate, like, do you need to wait a certain amount of time for trying to be professor? And I've gotten the answer, yes, you should, because that's something the committee might look at, that it's too soon. And the second question is, what sort of entails the national reputation in any given field?
Yeah. So there were two questions. One is there a time frame you should wait from associate to full professor? And the other is, what are they looking for national reputation? So I think it's number one, they'll look at, are you involved in national service? So being involved in national committees, being reviewers for things like journals and for national or federal grant opportunities. But what they're really looking at to see is your full body of work. Do you have some areas where you have recognition as specific content area? And then it's up to you to kind of show how that is reflected in your CV. So that can also include other things. So your publications, certainly, any media presentations, lectures that you've given, conferences that you presented at. So thinking, where are you having a presence outside of your state or immediate region, and what topic? That's also going to be reflected in your letters of recommendation. because you'll be getting letters from folks who are external to the Maryland system, you'll have independent reviewers. So they will provide feedback to the committee on, does your CV reflect that? Oh, and then for the time frame, I don't know the answer to that question, so we could follow up and give that information. Usually for most people, that jump from associate to professor is usually pretty big. So I think it's really, do you feel like you've been able to cultivate that more national focus? And then there's an expectation will be different if it's a primary clinical educator versus a primary researcher, I think, in how that manifests itself.
And we have another question. Yeah. Go ahead.
How much does additional qualification carry? How much weight since the last one? So if you were promoted and then you're going for the next step and you got some additional qualification in something relevant, how much weight does that carry?
I don't know that I can, or that we can give you sort of a precise weight, but it certainly counts if you are moving things forward. You know, you're now boarded in something that you weren't boarded in before. You know, obviously, this is important and is something you would want to highlight in your personal statement, in your application packet. Dr. Morano.
So I have a question about institutional service. Just like, is it better, you know, people, you get to be asked on a lot of different committees and sometimes you can't say yes to everything. Is there something you suggest, particularly your hospital committees, not as maybe looked at as well as medical school work?
My sense is that School of Medicine stuff is sort of the gold ring on all of this. You know, if you're on a couple of School of Medicine committees, that's probably better than being on 3 times as many hospital committees. Would that be your take as well?
Yeah, I don't have a strong feeling about hospital versus School of Medicine, but I think, you know, people review your CV saying this is within your scope of work or expected. So, you know, like if you're going to be a teacher in your division, that's part of the job, right? So you want to just show things to show you're reaching across disciplines or groups, and also that anything that's a leadership role that's impactful. So it's one thing to serve on a committee, it's another to have like an actual product from that, like saying we changed, you know, some protocol or pathway or system, or we were able to expand the number of trainees in a program or things like that. So thinking from that perspective, it's not just having the committee membership.
Thank you. We've covered most of the things on our current slide. I'm sorry, did you have a question that I missed? Go ahead.
Yeah, so speaking as one of several new faculty members in this room, but I cannot speak for myself, but I'm wondering, so as a new faculty member, focusing on where do we get lunch is important, yes. But also when we're thinking about our experiences, our kind of involvement in things that we're doing now versus things we've done before, does that essentially kind of, will the committee look at that and say, year one is year one? Or is the committee looking at that and saying, year one is year one of this position, however, also looking at before year one?
I think year one is year one of this position, but certainly, you know, you were highly productive and did a million amazing things during your residency or your fellowship training. That counts. And that doesn't, you know, vanish when you're looking at getting promoted. There's going to be more focus on what has happened in your current job, but that other stuff doesn't go away.
Yeah, I would say focus. I think the CV is going to focus mainly on your faculty time, but use that as your building blocks to show you have this sort of longitudinal interest in an area or focus in an area. I think it's very helpful. I just want to say something about the whole publication issue is that we have a lot of people who reach out to us about the issue about not feeling like they have enough pubs or or worried about that. And usually the strategy that people approach us with is that they need to write a paper all on their own or be a first author paper. And, you know, I think what we can try to do is support you to find synergistic opportunities. There are a lot of folks who would value the perspective of a clinician and the work they're doing. So it gives you opportunities to seek out co-author roles as well. So I think It's when you're busy, sometimes you could get discouraged because you feel like you're trying to climb the highest mountain. But if you can chip away at being a co-author, that's a great way to start. A lot of times, the other thing is for clinicians, I think doing commentary articles is also a nice way to start. These are usually data-free papers and sort of get you in the mode of writing and are pretty short and manageable. So we've helped people with getting commentary stuff going. That can be a good start.
So I think I've actually covered most of this. Keep that CV updated. Do not be updating 5 years worth of your CV. You will have forgotten a bunch of stuff that you did that could well be on your CV. Use your mentor, and certainly your division director can be helpful. Dr. Rockbeisel also wants, especially our junior faculty, to have a mentor who's not their division director, and then connect with other junior faculty for supports and to kind of discuss some of all this moving forward. Develop a plan for building your CV. And this is something you can do in year 2. So, one small step at a time. Yes, you're going to need some publications, but certainly not all first author research studies. And Dr. Miller, you've done a bunch of writing in the analytic world, some of which you've done solo. So it's not like you can't do solo stuff if you have expertise and an area that lends itself well to that. Institutional committee work, and especially School of Medicine committees. What teaching are you doing? Keep track of this. Literally, if you are teaching a class, put it on your CV. You can go back and deal with the formatting later. Are there ways for you to expand this? So I know that in talking with some of the junior faculty who work in my division, I've had people say, I did some of this in my previous job or in my previous training, and I'd like to do some teaching. Great. I've got some places I can plug people into for teaching. Develop some presentations, and you can start with that research day poster. Dr. Reeves will start putting out calls for research day posters early on. Early in my career, my goal for myself was that I submit things to it for workshops at least 2 national conferences a year. They didn't have to get accepted. I set myself no expectations around that. Just do the submission. And if something didn't get accepted, then look at it again the next year and see if you can rework it. Doing grand rounds in other places. For example, Spring Grove Hospital and Springfield Hospital would love to have you come do grand rounds on something of interest to them, and they'll pay you for it. So,
yeah.
Also really useful. Go ahead.
So a couple comments about CV. To me, that's the worst part of promotion, is getting your CV in the freaking exact format, because they're super picky and just remembering everything and finding everything. So we are delighted to offer some support and help with that. So for folks who are going up for promotion, if you would like to have somebody to meet with you, we can start as early as in the fall or in the winter time before you're interested in going up for promotion, and we'll help you reconstruct your CV and make sure it's formatted in the correct way. So my former research assistant did that, and my wonderful new research assistant, Austin Cooper, is here, who's super detail oriented. So we will help you with the formatting and getting it through. But what we do is we put your CV up on a screen, and we meet over 2 or 3 sessions and go through each section. So when we go through it, we try to help you give prompts to recall things that you could take credit for, but also we'll point out things that you could work on and that we could help facilitate. So we're very happy to schedule meetings to go over CVs, and we do it over a couple sessions. So it's hopefully not too overwhelming. So it's really good to keep your CV up to date. It makes a big difference.
And Gloria is an amazing spin doctor with all of this. I had listed all of my presentations at APA meetings, and she said, oh, this was in Toronto. It's international. I said, it was Toronto. I drove there. She said, it's international. So, I got stuff in a whole separate category that would never have occurred to me. Think about connecting with national and local organizations that are relevant for you. Start out with joining if you haven't already done that. Then think about whether there's a committee that you want to be actively involved with. Is there an office that you want to run for? I currently am heading the Nominations and Elections Committee for the Maryland Psychiatric Society. Although I've had some very enthusiastic people looking to run for council. I've also reached the point where I'm twisting people's arms to get them to do that. So, you know, these organizations are interested in having you. And they also often provide connections that are really important. So I'm a very active member with the American Association for Community Psychiatry. Those people were lovely about writing a bunch of letters of promotion for me. And now quid pro quo, I get stuff from their institutions where they're like, please be an external reviewer for this person who's going up.
Yeah. And a couple of things I mentioned that people bring up when they've met with us. So one is not everybody likes to present. Some people are very uncomfortable being in front of a big crowd and presenting. There is an option for you. We can have you participate as a panel discussion. So you're one of 6 people up there. We could figure it out. So if there's something that makes you uncomfortable about trying something, a lot of people don't like to do media interviews. There's a media interview training program that's very supportive. And the media specialist here will go with you to any kind of interview that you do, or we'll sit next to you if you're doing something on Zoom. So there's a lot of supports we could put in place if there's something that you're just is new to you or makes you uncomfortable in any way.
Lots of ways to publish and be academically productive. We've already touched on most of these. But yeah, letters to the editor in a psychiatric journal, those count. You get your letter published, that counts, and those get reviewed. So think about those kinds of things. If you read something in one of your favorite journals and you're like, this doesn't seem right, or this is the best idea anyone ever had, write that letter. In fact, I think one of my very first publications as a psychiatrist was a letter written by the 2 attendings on the inpatient unit that I worked at the old Walter P. Carter Center, where we had lots of discussion. This was about kind of a case study, but they included me and the resident on the paper, other resident on the paper, because we had been part of that. And it wasn't until I went back and did a PubMed search of myself that I even remembered that that had happened. So, Dr. Melanie Bennett put this together. We have a research infusion committee that involves ambulatory psychiatry, particularly community. But we also have some folks from the addictions division and occasionally others. And this was around a very specific study that she is doing. And she laid out really clean, clear ways that clinicians could participate. So those included for her, and these are her slides, writing a review paper around improving substance use disorder treatment and medication-assisted treatment for substance use disorders in community mental health. And they were inviting lots of participants. The project was planned to generate at least 1 outcome paper and 1 qualitative paper. And she asked for participation with those. Those were typically, as she described it, going to be monthly meetings where people would leave with some assignments and stuff to do over the month. She talked about several ways to become a co-author, part of which was being part of that core writing group, meeting regularly, determining the direction of the paper. It's usually led by people who will be the first and last authors, last author typically being the senior author. She wanted other people who could be on standby to write a paragraph on a topic that they had some expertise on, and others to be part of a review group that reviewed drafts of the papers to give input before submissions. And, you know, gave us some idea as to how people might get listed on these papers, which was alphabetically in between the core writers and the senior author. So lots of ways to do that. Dr. Bennett has been amazing with how do we involve clinicians with some of this. I think there are certainly also plenty of other people on the faculty who are primary researchers and happy to help clinicians get involved with some of this. Okay, so what are they looking at when I go up for promotion? Teaching counts. All teaching counts. If you are doing lectures over at the School of Social Work, it counts. If you are doing community education where you're talking to a faith-based group about depression and other things, those count. Medical student teaching is particularly valued, and you really want to have some of that in your CV if you possibly can. There are lots of opportunities for this. There is a huge preclinical medical student course that happens end of February, beginning of March, where we are looking for faculty to do everything from large lecture hall stuff to small interview groups. All this stuff counts, and the vast majority of it has med student feedback, which is also stuff that you want to keep track of. Other things about teaching.
Yeah, so I think when you're going up for promotion, it's not just sort of a actuarial thing where you've done so much this teaching, so much research, so much whatever. I think you really want to be able to give a good narrative about how impactful or any outcomes due to that. So for the folks who went up for promotion this last cycle, last 2 cycles, people were able to comment about a new course they've developed. So something that's new that you can take ownership over is really important and impactful. Having outcomes for any teaching you're doing. So if you're teaching in a less traditional setting, what is the outcome? So if it was an online thing, how many people clicked on the Zoom? Or did it impact something about how that organization functions? So think about, it's not just like what you're doing, but is it new? Did you have a leadership role, and any kind of outcomes that could be collected? The nice thing about teaching at the med school is they've really improved their process for structuring feedback. The challenging thing about that is they get feedback. There's a lot of opinions, but you get used to sort of the idea of being able to demonstrate the impact of what you're doing, which is really important. One of my most favorite things about teaching and contribution to knowledge, we had somebody over the pandemic who came up with a low tech paper flyer to be distributed to their faith community because they were concerned about incidents of depression in women in their faith community. And they felt like something on paper that they just received in the mail would be read more than an email or a text or whatever. And it was a hugely impactful project. It doesn't have to be high tech or anything. And it led to a lot of folks getting help and support. And so that was a really amazing project.
We've talked a lot about contributions to knowledge and the various ways in which these can occur. Clinical activities, are you meeting standards of care? We do annual reviews of each other's charts that provide some of this information. We're going to look at RVUs, areas of clinical expertise. I don't think I actually started out my career saying, I'm going to develop these areas of clinical expertise. I love being an assertive community treatment psychiatrist. I've continued to do that. Now I'm old, so that's an area of expertise because I've been doing it probably about as long as anybody in the country has. So, you sometimes kind of land in these things where you didn't actually set out to go there. And then service and provision of service for the attainment of the academic goals of the school is important. These are your institutional committees, but also service to the community, editorial boards for professional journals, service in professional organizations, mentoring of junior faculty, and certainly mentoring of residents. And at least with some of our promotion packets, we're looking for testimonials from people who you've taught or mentored, and they don't have to write a whole endless letter of recommendation, but a paragraph that says, Dr. Reeves was wonderful, and this is why.
Can you share about how you help people get reviewer opportunities?
So, Dr. Lavoie, do you want to talk about how I help people get reviewer opportunities? I just dragged you into one.
I think people online though, Zach, can I use this, or how do we help so people online can hear?
So,
Oh, you're welcome to come up if you like.
It was pretty simple. Dr. Hackman got me in touch with the editor-in-chief of the American Journal of Community Psychiatry, and I reviewed a few articles along with the residents who did a great job. So that was a really great opportunity.
So for folks who are online, who couldn't pick up that sound, so Dr. Lavoie shared with us about Dr. Hackman giving an opportunity to review some article with some students. And there are so many people who can help get you connected with opportunities to review. There are a lot of people here who are very generous with their time. They'd be happy to co-review with you if you've never done one before. We're very fortunate to have several folks on our faculty who have served as editors or associate editors of journals. And they're also really tremendous resources.
Yeah, and I know that community mental health is my jam, but not necessarily everybody's. But the editor for that journal is always delighted to have new reviewers. I'm happy to look over reviews. And yeah, Dr. Lavoie and I and the third year residents reviewed 9 manuscripts and returned them all. And thus far, they've gone with all of our recommendations around revisions and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they were really pleased with us.
Yeah. And just like everything else, just have a folder, either virtual or on paper in your office where you just stuff stuff to remind yourself later to add to your CV. So if you do a review, just print out or save in your virtual file that you did a review so you don't have to hunt down and find this stuff later. Have one central place where everything that you need to add to your CV is kept. It will save you a lot of grief having to look stuff up later.
So I think I'm ready. What next? Go over it with your division director, go over your CV and get their input. Assuming that you do go up for promotion, your division director is going to have to write you a letter of recommendation that then is reviewed, adapted, and sent off by the chair. So they're going to know that you're going up for promotion anyway, have this discussion and be sure they're thoroughly on board. Then review it with somebody on the APT committee. And Gloria and I are always happy to do this. And just take a look. And, I've done this with people and said, what are the chances you think you'll get another couple of publications in the next year? Or do you want to run for Maryland Psychiatric Society? I think a little more, community stuff and service with state organizations would be useful. And then, and this is Dr. Reeves's area of specialization, soon to be Austin's, getting the CV in the proper order. There is someone over at the med school who seems to spend their entire life looking for every comma on the CV and saying, no, it should have been a semicolon. I can't imagine doing that job. I actually hope they found AI to do it at this point.
Yeah, we love them and we appreciate them, but it is challenging. We did try to switch to a totally AI system and it still didn't do the correct formatting. So we do it a little bit. We try to save time, but we'll do it the old school way and help you. Yeah, this is the biggest thing is to update your CV once a year. It will save you so much grief. And if you feel like it's too stressful to do it, then just contact us. I'm happy to do it with you. It takes 3 sessions to get your CV up to date, and we'll help you with the formatting and make sure it's in good shape. The other thing I want to underscore Anne's comments about talk to your division director. There's no way I would have gone up for full professor if my own division director, Dr. Sarah Edwards, bugged me about it on the regular and forced me to do it. So I think it's also good to let them know you're thinking about it because that will also get you more encouragement and support because it is just one more thing to add to your schedule.
Then start thinking about, if you've gotten the green light on this stuff, then start thinking about a personal statement. And your personal statement's going to cover the various spheres of your effort. It's good if they're a little bit self-aggrandizing. We saw one last year that basically said, I'm only going up for this position because other people told me I should. That person did get promoted, but that's not the best start to your personal statement. So, what have your contributions been? And then start thinking about people who you want to ask to write letters of recommendation. And they must be for formal letters of recommendation of the rank that you are applying for or higher. So if you're going up for associate professor, you need other associate professors, people who are currently associate professors, people who are full professors to write your letters. And this is true for internal, external, and independent references. Internal references are pretty obvious. External references are people who are not on faculty at the University of Maryland School of Medicine. So this may be somebody that you worked with previously at Hopkins, or that you know from your training, but they're not on faculty here. Independent references are people who you have not worked with closely and with whom you do not share any publications. And sometimes, you know, that gets sticky because people can be on these multi-author papers and they're like, I never met him. How come I can't use them? You can. Yes.
When it says like you have not worked with closely, does that mean like clinically, or like what if you serve on a committee with someone?
Serving on a committee with someone is typically just fine.
Okay.
But yeah, your independent letter of recommendation is not coming from your former boss. For example, they could do an external letter if they're not in the system.
Yeah. I mean, there's just 1,000 rules and it will change. So always check first. Ideally, your division director, your mentors, and then, you know, we can help identify people that it's an independent letter. So it's better if it's not somebody with you, but that person could be a great external reference that of somebody you know. So that's why it's helpful to be on some kind of regional committee or national committee, because then you already know a lot of people who will start to get familiar with what you do and what you're interested in. That makes a big difference.
Timeline. So one of the reasons we're doing this now is because letters just went from Dr. Rockbeisel to the Dean of the School of Medicine this week. We've just finished our working part of this year's cycle. So if you're thinking, gee, I might be ready to go up next spring, this is what the timeline looks like. By March, April, spring, you want to be talking to your division director about being ready to move forward and have your CV reviewed. In May, June, and July, you get your list of people for recommendation letters. And again, with some of this stuff, we can help with it. One of our recent applicants was having great difficulty with external and independent letters. And that person had trained here. I literally went back through all of the files that I should have deleted from their training a while back and found people from their class who were now associate professors somewhere. Reach out to these folks. They can do an external letter for you.
Yeah. I just want to say that there's talk of this timeline moving up earlier because there are more people going up for promotion and it takes time for the APT committee to review it. So you may read something like change. So I just want to throw that out there. But if you think about the time frame, if you're thinking about going up for promotion, like for this year, if you reach out to us with just phase one, which is just getting your CV in order, wouldn't it be nice to have January, February, March to get your CV, like 3 months to just sort of at a nice, easy breezy pace, get it all together. So that way at the end of March, you have a meeting scheduled with your division director to review it. You reach out to us and I will connect with our APT director for the department to ask to review. So if you just do stuff way ahead of time, it's so much more easy breezy and it's a better process. So it's less stressful, I think.
Packets currently are supposed to be completed in August, and all your letters need to be in by the end of August. Clinical and education portfolios are something we can give you examples of when you're ready to do this. In August and September, the packets are prepared for the department APT committee. In October, the department APT committee meets, makes decisions, drafts letters for the chair for everybody who's moving forward.
Yeah. So like all things, this is a setup. You're trying to reach your nearest and dearest in the summer when they're on vacation. It's very challenging. I know I leaned on my division director and other folks for supports getting the letters. So the earlier you start the process, so much easier and less painful. If you just focus on getting 1 or 2 letters a month is very different than trying to get 6 letters all of a sudden. You know, so the earlier you start, the better, and it'll make the process a lot easier.
And then November 1 or thereabouts, the department is submitting chairs letters to the dean. The dean's office may request revisions. These are always fun. We love those revisions when they're requested from the dean's office, but you just do them. Decisions are finalized in the spring. And as we said earlier, in my tenure with APT, I have not seen anybody sent through by the department and then ejected by the med school. Candidates are informed late spring. Promotions are effective July 1. And then in September, the promotions get announced at the state of the department.
Yeah, so it's a super long process. It's a year plus. So it's just, you have to get used to the pace of it. It's very slow. But the longer you make the process, the less stressful it is on you. And that's the main thing. Just don't make it a big stress where you feel like you have to rush.
And again, if anybody online has questions or comments, please type them into the chat. I think we've already said we're very willing to meet with people individually. If there are several people who are looking to go up next year or in the foreseeable future, we'd be happy to meet with people together and go through more nitty-gritty of this process. I think doing this stuff is part of good academic citizenship. And if you're already doing all this work, then let's get the academic credit for it.
Yes, Hassan.
Most common reason for people down here returning or decline.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think when people review a CV, they expect you're not going to be exactly even on everything, but you don't want to have something that's a glaring deficit. So some of the things have been folks who really haven't taught at all, like you're at a university. And so I think that happened a lot to people over the pandemic because they're just trying to get through and figure out what's going on. The second is, I think if you are very strong as a researcher, but you're not really doing anything that's impacting the education system, like if you don't have a balance. And for clinicians, I think if you don't have any kind of you're not presenting at any kind of conferences, or you have maybe one or two publications, it's just maybe too soon to go up and you need a little bit more support to fill out the rest of those things on there. But it's usually it's because there's one area. Usually the rest of the CV is stellar, outstanding, but there's one area that's just not, it doesn't get up to a level that it's going to be get through to the School of Medicine level. And so that's why the department wants to really help you to identify those areas for future development.
And that's unusual, even with our own APT committee. I would say that in my time on the committee, probably 95% of people have, gone through to the school and gotten promoted. And maybe even higher than that, I don't know.
Yeah, I think most go through pretty well, but I would say a lot of times the people who don't go through are people who didn't get a lot of feedback going into it sometimes, or sometimes it's just you're so strong and stellar in one area. Maybe you've developed all these new clinical services that you just haven't had time to focus on some of the other areas. So it's usually quite a fixable thing.
Thank you for coming to Not Grand Rounds. I hope this is useful. We are both very happy to talk to people. Dr. Richard Goldberg is incredibly user-friendly and very happy to be helpful with this. And he puts in a boatload of work to make this process go smoothly and
Yeah. And I would just end by saying, whoever you think is really amazing as your peer, trust me, when they come and meet with the APT, somebody on the APT committee to ask about it, most people are very negative about their impact and really don't appreciate or acknowledge how much that they have impacted our school, our institution, as well as our community. So the reason we do these painful CV exercises and stuff, because it's a great opportunity for us to learn about your contributions, to be able to brag about that to the chair, to the other School of Medicine leaders, and also to give you feedback that these are some really amazing things that you've done. And so I think the promotion process is very stressful, but I think the prep process is an opportunity to really acknowledge the great contributions you've had. And most people underreport on their CV. We come up with whole half-page sections on things that you've done and developed. And I can just think of recently the person, somebody I met with had developed a new course that I desperately wish I had as a student. And just incredible to recognize the achievements of others.
And I think if at some point you get invited to be on the APT committee, do it. It's one of the coolest committees I'm part of. I drafted someone's letter for the committee earlier, somebody who is a psychologist, and I was just blown away. This person's achievements were spectacular. Maybe want to go back and retract my own application for professor, because yeah, it was just amazing. So this, I think, has been a very fun committee and remains a very fun committee to be part of.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. And full credit to Dr. Hackman, who started this process last year. She gave this presentation for her division and led to, like, I think 3 people going up. So thank you, Anne.
You can list it as a grand round. It's okay.
It's not a grand round. It's not grand round. I'm gonna put it down.